The Secret of the Antikythera Mechanism, the Ancient Greek Computer, a relaxing bedtime history journey. Welcome, dear listener, to a story that bridges 2,000 years. Tonight, we journey back to ancient Greece, to a time when the Mediterranean sun warmed marble temples and philosophers walked beneath olive trees, contemplating the movements of the heavens. But this is not just a story of philosophy. This is the story of a machine, a device so sophisticated that when it was discovered, no one believed it could possibly be real. Settle in, get comfortable, and let me tell you about the Antikythera Mechanism, the ancient Greek computer that rewrote everything we thought we knew about the technological capabilities of the ancient world. Our story begins not in ancient times, but on a spring day in 1900, off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera, a rocky outcrop between Crete and mainland Greece. The waters here are deep and treacherous, where the Aegean Sea meets the open Mediterranean. For thousands of years, these waters have claimed countless ships, pulling them down into the dark depths where they rest, silent and forgotten. But on this particular day, a group of sponge divers from the island of Simi were about to make a discovery that would shake the foundations of our understanding of ancient technology. If you enjoy this type of content, please give us a like and subscribe. It will greatly motivate us to keep creating contents like this. The discovery. Captain Demetrius Kondas and his crew of sponge divers were experienced men of the sea. They spent their days diving to dangerous depths, holding their breath as they collected sponges from the ocean floor, a trade that had sustained Greek island communities for generations. They wore the traditional copper helmets and canvas suits, breathing air pumped down from the surface through rubber hoses. On this day, a storm had forced them to take shelter near Antikythera. As the weather calmed, diver Elias Stadiatis descended to scout for sponges at a depth of about 42 meters, around 138 feet. What happened next became the stuff of legend. When Stadiatis surfaced, he was babbling, nearly incoherent. He spoke of finding bodies on the ocean floor, heaps of dead men and horses. Captain Kondas thought perhaps his diver had succumbed to nitrogen narcosis, the rapture of the deep, a dangerous condition that can cause hallucinations at such depths. But Kondas decided to investigate himself. When he descended, he discovered that Stadiatis had not been hallucinating. There, scattered across the seabed, was an ancient shipwreck, and what the young diver had mistaken for bodies were actually marble and bronze statues, their forms still eerily lifelike after 2 millennia beneath the waves. The ship had been carrying a cargo of immense value. There were bronze statues of heroes and gods, marble sculptures of exquisite beauty, fine pottery, jewelry, and glassware. This was clearly a treasure ship, perhaps carrying plunder or luxury goods from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome. Over the following months, with support from the Greek government, the divers recovered as much as they could from the wreck. It was dangerous work. 1 diver died, and 2 were paralyzed by decompression sickness. But they brought up a treasure trove that filled the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Among these treasures was a corroded lump of bronze and wood, barely recognizable, crusted with limestone and marine deposits. It was cataloged and set aside, just another unidentifiable fragment among the thousands of artifacts. For several months, it sat in storage, ignored and unremarkable. Then, on May 17, 1902, archaeologist Valerio Stays noticed something extraordinary. The lump had dried out and split apart, revealing something inside. There, clearly visible in the corroded bronze, was a gear wheel. Not just any gear, but a finely crafted toothed wheel that had clearly once been part of a sophisticated mechanism. This was impossible, or at least it should have been. The impossibility. To understand why this discovery was so shocking, we need to understand what historians believed about ancient technology in 1902. The conventional wisdom was clear. The ancient Greeks were brilliant philosophers, mathematicians, and artists, but they were not engineers in the modern sense. They had simple machines, basic tools, perhaps some clever devices described in ancient texts, but nothing approaching the complexity of geared mechanisms. Gears were thought to be a medieval innovation, perhaps from the Islamic Golden Age or the European Renaissance. The idea that ancient Greeks, living in the 1st or 2nd century BCE, could have created a device with multiple interlocking gears was simply not part of the accepted historical narrative. And yet here it was. Undeniably ancient, undeniably sophisticated, and undeniably real. The initial reaction from much of the academic community was skepticism. Some suggested the mechanism must have fallen into the wreck at a later date, perhaps during the Middle Ages. Others proposed it might be an astrolabe, a known ancient instrument, despite the fact that it looked nothing like one. A few simply dismissed it as an anomaly, something that didn't fit the narrative and therefore could be safely ignored. But Stays and a few other researchers knew they had found something unprecedented. Over the following decades, various scholars attempted to study the mechanism, but the corrosion was so severe that understanding its full complexity seemed impossible. The bronze had fused with wood, and limestone deposits obscured much of the internal structure. In the 1950s, a British historian of science named Derek de Solla Price became obsessed with the mechanism. He spent years studying it, taking X-rays, making careful measurements, and slowly piecing together how it might have worked. In 1959, he published a groundbreaking paper, and in 1974, his definitive work on the subject appeared in the journal Transactions of the American Philosophical Society. Price's conclusion was stunning. The Antikythera Mechanism was an ancient analog computer designed to calculate the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. It was, he argued, technology that would not be matched in complexity until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe, more than 1,000 years later. Even then, many remained skeptical. The mechanism was too corroded to fully verify Price's theories. Some of his interpretations were questioned. The mystery remained. It would take new technology and a new generation of researchers to finally unlock the secrets of this ancient machine. The breakthrough. In 2005, an international team of researchers began a comprehensive new study of the mechanism. They brought with them cutting-edge imaging technology that Price could only have dreamed of. They used high-resolution X-ray computed tomography, the same technology used in medical CT scans, but at much higher resolutions. This allowed them to peer inside the corroded bronze, seeing details that were completely invisible to the naked eye. They could see individual gear teeth, count them precisely, and understand how the gears meshed together. They also used a technique called polynomial texture mapping, which involved photographing the fragments under light from different angles and using computer algorithms to enhance the visibility of surface details. This revealed ancient Greek inscriptions that had been completely illegible before, hidden in the corrosion for 2,000 years. What they found was breathtaking. The Antikythera mechanism was far more complex than even Price had imagined. It contained at least 30 bronze gears, and probably originally had more that have been lost over the centuries. These weren't simple gears either. They were precision-engineered components, some with more than 200 teeth, cut with remarkable accuracy. The device would have been housed in a wooden box, roughly the size of a shoebox, perhaps 30 centimeters tall, 15 centimeters wide, and 10 centimeters deep. On the front was a large circular dial, and on the back were 2 spiral dials. There were knobs or handles on the side that could be turned to operate the mechanism. But what did it do? The researchers discovered that when you turned the input crank, the gears inside would rotate at different speeds, carefully calculated ratios that corresponded to astronomical periods. The front dial displayed the position of the sun and moon against the background of the zodiac constellations. It showed the phase of the moon. It tracked the irregular motion of the moon across the sky, accounting for its elliptical orbit. The back dials were even more remarkable. One was a calendar system showing the 19-year metonic cycle, a period after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same days of the solar year. This was subdivided into the 235 lunar months that make up this cycle. The ancient Greeks used this cycle to coordinate their lunar calendar with the solar year and to predict eclipses. And indeed, the mechanism could predict eclipses. One of the back dials, called the Saros dial, tracked the 223-month Saros cycle, a period known to ancient astronomers after which eclipses repeat in a similar pattern. The mechanism could predict not just when an eclipse would occur, but what time of day it would happen and whether it would be a solar or a lunar eclipse. There was even evidence of a smaller subsidiary dial that tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. The engineering marvel. Let's pause for a moment and consider what this really means. Imagine you're an ancient Greek craftsman working in bronze with hand tools. You need to create a gear with, say, 223 teeth perfectly spaced around a circle. Each tooth must be precisely the right shape and size to mesh smoothly with other gears. A single error, and the whole mechanism would jam. The level of craftsmanship required is extraordinary. Modern researchers have attempted to recreate the mechanism using ancient techniques, and it requires exceptional skill and patience. The gear teeth show evidence of being filed by hand to achieve the correct profile. But the craftsmanship is only part of the story. Someone had to design this machine. They needed to understand not just how gears work, but how to use gear trains to create specific ratios that matched astronomical periods. Consider the moon's orbit. The moon doesn't travel around Earth at a constant speed. Because its orbit is elliptical, it moves faster when it's closer to Earth and slower when it's farther away. This irregularity puzzled ancient astronomers for centuries. The Antikythera mechanism solves this problem mechanically, using a clever arrangement of gears mounted on a pin-and-slot device that varies the gear ratio as it turns. This is essentially a mechanical implementation of a mathematical concept from ancient Greek astronomy called the first lunar anomaly. It's the earliest known example of such a mechanism, predating anything similar by more than 1,500 years. The gear ratios themselves are revealing. To track the moon's position, you need to know that the moon completes about 254 sidereal revolutions in 19 solar years. This translates to a gear ratio of 254 to 19. But you can't make a gear with 254 teeth mesh directly with a gear with 19 teeth and get a workable mechanism. You need to factor these numbers and create a gear train using intermediate gears. The makers of the Antikythera Mechanism understood this. They created compound gear trains, where multiple gears are mounted on the same axis, each meshing with different gears to build up the complex ratios needed. This requires not just mechanical skill, but significant mathematical sophistication. The inscriptions. When the researchers used their advanced imaging techniques on the mechanism, they discovered something else remarkable. The device was covered with inscriptions. Not decorative flourishes, but an instruction manual written in tiny letters on the bronze plates. Imagine that. 2,000 years ago, someone painstakingly engraved thousands of characters, probably less than 2 millimeters tall, onto the surfaces of this device. They were writing a user's guide. The inscriptions are in ancient Greek, written in the style used in the 1st or 2nd century BC. They're fragmented, with many portions lost or illegible, but what remains is fascinating. They describe how to use the device, what the various dials show, and they include astronomical and calendar information. One inscription describes the colors of eclipses, noting that they would appear in various shades depending on circumstances. Another lists the risings and settings of stars and constellations throughout the year, a kind of astronomical almanac. The front cover apparently had a treatise on cosmology, explaining the ancient Greek understanding of the universe. The back cover described the motions of the planets. This was not just a calculator. It was a teaching tool, perhaps used in schools or by philosophers to demonstrate the movements of the heavens. It was astronomy made tangible, the cosmos reduced to bronze and wood, small enough to hold in your hands. The language and letter forms in the inscriptions have helped researchers narrow down when and where the mechanism might have been made. The writing style suggests it was created somewhere in the Greek world, possibly Rhodes or Corinth, around 150 to 100 BC, during what historians call the Hellenistic period. This was the age after Alexander the Great, when Greek culture had spread across the Mediterranean and into Asia. It was a time of remarkable intellectual activity, when Greek mathematics and astronomy reached heights that would not be surpassed for centuries. The astronomical knowledge. To create the Antikythera Mechanism, its makers needed access to sophisticated astronomical knowledge. They needed to know the periods of the sun and moon with great precision. They needed to understand the Metonic cycle and the Saros cycle. They needed data on when eclipses occur and how the moon's speed varies in its orbit. Where did this knowledge come from? The ancient Greeks were extraordinary astronomers. Beginning in the 6th century BC, Greek philosophers and mathematicians began to observe the heavens systematically, recording data, looking for patterns, and developing theories. By the 3rd century BC, astronomers like Aristarchus of Samos were making remarkably accurate measurements. Aristarchus calculated the distance to the moon and sun, and even proposed that Earth orbits the sun, not the other way around, an idea that wouldn't be accepted for another 1,800 years. Hipparchus, who lived in the 2nd century BC, was perhaps the greatest observational astronomer of the ancient world. He created a comprehensive star catalog, discovered the precession of the equinoxes, and made precise measurements of the length of the year and the month. Many historians believe that Hipparchus, or someone in his tradition, may have been involved in the design of the Antikythera Mechanism, As the astronomical periods it uses match the values Hipparchus is known to have calculated. The Babylonians, too, contributed to this knowledge. For centuries, Babylonian astronomers had been keeping meticulous records of celestial phenomena. They discovered the Saros cycle and other eclipse prediction methods. This knowledge flowed westward and was incorporated into Greek astronomy during the Hellenistic period. The Antikythera Mechanism represents the culmination of centuries of astronomical observation and mathematical development. It's not just a machine, it's a library of astronomical knowledge encoded in bronze gears. When you turn the crank on the side of the mechanism and watch the dials turn, you are seeing the accumulated wisdom of generations of astronomers, all working together in mechanical harmony. The lost tradition. Here's one of the great mysteries. If the ancient Greeks could build something as sophisticated as the Antikythera Mechanism, where are all the other examples? The mechanism from the Antikythera wreck is unique. Nothing else like it has ever been found. We have no other surviving Greek-geared devices of comparable complexity. In fact, if the shipwreck had never been discovered, we would have no direct evidence that such technology ever existed in the ancient world. Why is it alone? One possibility is simply the passage of time. Bronze is valuable and can be melted down and reused. Throughout history, bronze objects have been recycled to make coins, weapons, or new tools. Perhaps there were many such mechanisms, but they were all recycled long ago, their valuable metal too precious to leave intact. Wood rots, of course, and the wooden case of the Antikythera Mechanism only survived because it was preserved underwater, protected from the decay that would have destroyed it on land. Another possibility is that such devices were rare and expensive, perhaps commissioned only by wealthy patrons or important institutions. Making one would have required months or years of skilled work. The astronomical knowledge needed to design one was known only to a small community of experts. There may have been only a handful ever made. We do have tantalizing hints in ancient literature that such devices existed. Cicero, the Roman statesman and philosopher who lived in the 1st century BC, describes a device made by Archimedes that showed the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. He mentions another made by Posidonius, a Greek philosopher and polymath. These descriptions sound remarkably like the Antikythera Mechanism. There are other references scattered through ancient texts, brief mentions of mechanical spheres or devices that showed celestial motions. Historians once dismissed these as exaggerations or misunderstandings. Now, after the Antikythera Mechanism, we know they were probably describing real devices. This suggests there was a tradition of astronomical mechanism making in the ancient Greek world, a tradition that has been almost completely lost to history. The Antikythera Mechanism is our single surviving witness to a technology that once existed but vanished. Why did this tradition disappear? Perhaps it was simply too specialized, too expensive, too dependent on a small number of skilled craftsmen and knowledgeable astronomers. As the Roman Empire declined and the ancient world gave way to the Middle Ages, much knowledge was lost. Libraries burned, texts were lost, and specialized skills died out with their practitioners. It would be more than 1,000 years before European craftsmen would again create geared astronomical mechanisms of comparable sophistication in the elaborate astronomical clocks of the medieval period. The shipwreck story. Let's return to the ship that carried this precious device to the bottom of the sea. Who owned the mechanism? Where was it going? Why did the ship sink? The ship itself dates to about 70 to 60 BC, based on the style of pottery and other artifacts found in the wreck. This was during the late Roman Republic, a turbulent time of civil wars and power struggles. The cargo was extraordinary. Besides the mechanism, there were bronze and marble statues of exceptional quality, some of them masterpieces. There were luxury goods, fine pottery, glassware. This was not a merchant ship carrying bulk cargo like grain or olive oil. This was a ship carrying treasures. One theory is that the ship was carrying plunder from Greece to Rome. In 86 BC, the Roman general Sulla had sacked Athens, and in subsequent years, other Roman commanders looted Greek cities and sanctuaries. Much of Greece's artistic heritage was shipped to Rome to decorate the villas of Roman aristocrats. Another possibility is that the cargo was being legitimately purchased or commissioned by a wealthy Roman patron. By the 1st century BC, there was a thriving trade in Greek art and luxury goods, as Romans sought to acquire the prestige of Greek culture. The ship may have been traveling from Rhodes or somewhere in the eastern Mediterranean toward Rome. Antikythera lies along this route, and the waters there are treacherous. A storm could have driven the ship onto the rocks, or perhaps there was a navigation error in the tricky currents. Whatever the cause, the ship went down, and its cargo was scattered across the seabed. The bronze and marble statues, meant to impress Roman guests in some grand villa, instead lay in the darkness beneath the waves. And the mechanism, that marvel of ancient engineering, was slowly buried in sand and coral, its gears frozen by corrosion. It waited there for 2,000 years, until those sponge divers stumbled upon it by chance. If the storm had blown the ship to a slightly different location, if the divers had chosen another spot to search for sponges, the mechanism might still be down there, undiscovered, and we would never have known that such technology existed in the ancient world. The modern understanding. Research on the Antikythera mechanism continues today. Even after more than a century of study, it still has secrets to reveal. In recent years, researchers have been working to understand the missing portions. We know the mechanism is incomplete. Only about a third of it survives. What did the missing parts do? There's strong evidence that the mechanism once displayed the positions of the 5 planets known to the ancient Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These would have been shown on the front dial, their positions calculated by gear trains that are now lost. Tracking planetary motions is significantly more complex than tracking the sun and moon. The planets appear to move against the background stars, but they don't move at constant speeds, and they sometimes appear to reverse direction, moving backward across the sky for weeks or months before resuming their forward motion. This retrograde motion puzzled ancient astronomers and was one of the great problems of ancient astronomy. The ancient Greeks explained retrograde motion using epicycles, circles moving on circles. Whether the Antikythera mechanism used gears to simulate epicycles or some other method to track planetary positions remains uncertain. But the inscriptions on the back cover definitely describe the planets, suggesting they were displayed somewhere on the device. Modern researchers have also explored the precision of the mechanism. How accurately could it predict astronomical events? Tests show that it was remarkably accurate for its time, though not perfect. The gear ratios don't quite match modern astronomical values, but they're very close to the best measurements available in the ancient world. One of the most intriguing recent discoveries involves the starting date, or epoch. of the mechanism. By analyzing the positions shown on the various dials, researchers have suggested that the mechanism was originally set to a date in December of 178 BCE, or possibly adjusted to show another significant date in the 2nd century BCE. This might have been an eclipse or some other astronomical event considered important. Closing reflection. As our story draws to a close, let's consider what the Antikythera Mechanism means for our understanding of history. For a long time, there was a tendency to view history as a story of steady progress, with each age building on the last, always moving forward. The ancient world developed basic technology, the Middle Ages added a bit more, and then the Renaissance and scientific revolution finally brought us into the modern age. The Antikythera Mechanism challenges this narrative. It shows us that technological sophistication isn't a simple straight line through history. Ancient peoples were capable of extraordinary achievements, given the right combination of knowledge, skill, and resources. And when civilizations decline, knowledge can be lost, sometimes for centuries. It reminds us, too, that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. For decades, the existence of complex ancient geared mechanisms was dismissed because no examples had been found. The discovery of a single artifact changed everything. What else might be waiting to be discovered? What other technologies did the ancient world possess that we don't yet know about? How many other artifacts like the Antikythera Mechanism were created but didn't survive or remain undiscovered? The mechanism also speaks to something profoundly human, our desire to understand the cosmos. For thousands of years, humans have looked up at the night sky and wondered about the movements of the stars and planets. We've created myths and stories, developed mathematics and science, built instruments and machines, all in an effort to understand our place in the universe. The Antikythera Mechanism is a testament to this quest. Someone, 2,000 years ago, dedicated years of their life to creating a machine that could predict the movements of the heavens. They didn't have computers or modern tools. They had bronze, wood, and mathematics. They had keen eyes, steady hands, and centuries of accumulated astronomical knowledge. And they created something that still amazes us today. Sources of information, images and videos used in this video are based on online research using AI. As you drift off to sleep tonight, imagine yourself standing on the deck of a ship in the ancient Mediterranean. The sun is setting, painting the sea in shades of orange and gold. In your hands, you hold a wooden box about the size of a thick book. You turn a small handle on its side, and through a glass window, you watch bronze gears turning, dials rotating, pointers moving across engraved scales. You're holding the cosmos in your hands, watching the dance of the sun and moon and stars, all the movements of the heavens captured in bronze and wood. You can look forward and back in time, seeing eclipses yet to come and those long past. You can see where the moon will be on your birthday 3 years from now, or where it was on the day you were born. This was the gift of the Antikythera Mechanism, a gift from the ancient world to ours, reminding us that wonder and ingenuity are timeless. Sleep well, knowing that humans have always looked up at the stars with curiosity and created beautiful things to understand them. The same sky that the ancient Greeks watched stretches above us still, full of mysteries waiting to be explored. Always remember, you are blessed, you are loved, you are a part of the divine. Good night.